quotes, infused with the scent of potpourri, the films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly podcast that reviews one or two new release titles every episode with an occasional free-for-all segment at the end that we call Potpourri. You can find more of our work, including my written reviews, full episode show notes, and the complete backlog of our episodes at obsessiveviewer.com. You can also write into the show by emailing me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. And if you'd like to support us and get access to hundreds of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where you can get access to content at any of our tier levels on a recurring monthly subscription basis, or you can buy individual collections a la carte in the Patreon shop section. I have a ton of Patreon content out there. It runs the gamut from immediate reaction movie reviews, commentary tracks, book reviews. I'm currently reviewing The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey in a 6-part read-along review series. I'm doing the same with You Like It Darker by Stephen King, as well on Patreon. So check all of that out and more at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. They all, like, Patreon supporters also get early access to episodes. So this episode is going up this Thursday on the 22nd. But Patreon supporters got access to it probably 20 minutes after we finish recording tonight on on August 20th. So another incentive, but yeah, once again, you can sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find me on social media, including Letterboxd, at the username of ObsessiveViewer. And later in the show, we'll be reviewing Didi, the new coming-of-age drama from filmmaker Sean Wang. But before that, we're going to go over some movie news and then review the new Alien film from director Fede Alvarez, Alien Romulus, in a non-spoiler and spoiler feature review. And joining me tonight is returning guest, my friend and IFGA colleague, who I would gladly follow into a derelict space station. The man whose reviews are a perfect organism of film criticism, which can be found at awakeinthedark.com. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Brent Leuthold. How's it going, buddy?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for answering the call. And by that, I mean the desperate messages that I send as I sit in the theater waiting for the movie to start and wondering if anyone will join me for a review. So
the SOS messages in the beacon of the dark space, outer space.
Yes, exactly. You got this warning signal, this SOS signal that drew you here, and now I'm going to hug your face. I don't know.
Works for me.
Yeah, there we go. Speaking of hugging face, now that I don't know how to transition to this, but why don't you tell the audience where they can hug your film writing and criticism online? Brent.
I have a new Patreon tier where I'll hug your face.
Oh, nice.
It's $20 a week though. It's pretty pricey.
Oh, yeah.
Well, spendy as they say in the Pacific Northwest. I'm on awakeinthedark.com. It's probably the best way to find all of my socials. I'm on Facebook, Twitter X, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram. I think I said on the caption on Instagram was something about how my review is like hugging the face of the internet.
Oh,
or something
nice.
Like that. So I always struggle with Instagram captions because I feel like
same.
I don't know why that one's always trickier, but
yeah.
Saw Romulus most recently, and I think Didi the week before that. So
yeah. You've recently reviewed Alien Romulus, Didi, Trap, and Deadpool and Wolverine. You post weekly reviews on awakeinthedark.com, and it's what has stood out to you, not necessarily about Alien Romulus or Didi, since we're going to be reviewing them, but Trap and Deadpool and Wolverine. How do you feel about those?
Trap, I didn't really care for. I asked Aubrey about this last night. So Well, no, this isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
So knowing what we know now about how they marketed the movie and how the movie is, could they have marketed it without telling us explicitly that Josh Hartnett is a serial killer?
That's an interesting question, and I can't remember if Sam and I covered that when we reviewed it on the podcast. But I think the final product of the movie, I think that would have been a little bit, if they had concealed that and made it a big surprise, I feel like it wouldn't have hit as hard as it would have if it was kind of a differently cut movie. Because kind of the reveal is just kind of, it's like, oh, he looks at his phone and, oh, okay, it is what it is. But I do think that it, like I talked about with Sam, it does kind of position the movie into being about this, just not even necessarily manipulation that he does, like manipulating people, but like the way that he can charm people into just letting him get his way without knowing that they're aiding and abetting a butcher. So
I really like Josh Hartnett's performance in it. I just like, it was one of those ones where it just kept there's that suspension of disbelief, and it just kept like ripping, and I was just like, a scene would happen, and it would just be like, that wouldn't happen like that at all, and then it kept just like stacking those up. But like, I have no issue with like, I didn't like Knock on the Cabin either, but like I'm on board, like in theory, for a lot of M. Night Shyamalan stuff. Like I went into it, wanting to really enjoy it, and I see the things that people really enjoyed about it, but I just couldn't get there. And Deadpool and Wolverine, it's I laughed a good bit. I just don't think it's a very good superhero movie, in terms of like, the things we talk about with superhero movies, like having a storyline that makes sense, or like a villain who's like motivations, because it's just like knowing what the limitations are of like the world. Like I haven't seen every single one of the 20th Century Fox hero movies, but I think I understood like all like the cameos and that sort of stuff. I just didn't understand fundamental things like, wait, like where is that universe then? But then how they're coming, and why is this person matter in this universe? And then this is happening now. So like, just it was a lot of multiverse stuff. Like a lot of my kind of issues with the movie were more like that sort of stuff. But like when it was pretty much just like a comedy, I was there for it. Like there's definitely clever jokes in the movie. So yeah, I was mixed on it, but anyway.
Nice. Well, you can read Brent's reviews on awakeinthedark.com and also listen to the podcast, to my podcast with those reviews and everything, and also Awake in the Dark podcast.
I think the last one I did was Dune 2. Never doing it again.
Oh, jeez.
No, that's not true. I'll do it again at some point. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we will Awake in the Dark Hive, rise up. We're going to get you back into the podcast. It's going to
make the return that much more triumphant.
Exactly.
That's all it is, really.
Exactly. I at least look forward to whatever Dune 3 is and your review of it on the podcast. Because you have to do that, at least. Yeah. So,
my friend Paul we did the first two Dune movies. So, I'm sure hopefully he'll be back for the third one. He's a great collaborator, and he is able to he records his end of it. So like it actually sounds good and stuff. So like that gets over my, not being in studio barrier. So yeah, I have absolutely no reason not to ask him for whatever the Messiah, I think. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. Whenever it happens. And I really liked listening to you and him talk about it, earlier this year. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And speaking of talking about things, I'm terrible with these segues today. Today we're going to be talking about Alien Romulus and Didi, But before that, I have some news before the reviews to kind of talk about. These are going to be just basically, I don't know how much we'll be able to talk about each of these things because I don't know. But the first news item that I have, Brent, is the Acolyte is dead. The Star Wars series won't be returning for season 2. Are you a fan of Star Wars? Have you watched any of the Disney Plus stuff? And how do you feel about this news?
I sent a meme in the chat today, and I wasn't sure they were talking about the Acolyte. So,
Yes.
I thought it was because I thought I knew what the actor looked like that they were goofing on. Anyway, yeah, it's too much. You know what's ironic is I make a lot of jokes conflating Star Trek and Star Wars and saying like I don't watch Star Trek and it's whatever. And I had said for a while that I like Star Wars because it was like the NFL and Star Trek was like college football where there's just too many movies and series and reboots and things to keep track of. Okay. Star Wars at the time was 3 episodes or 6 episodes and they're all movies and that's it. And now I would say over the past, I don't know when the Mandalorian started, 2018
maybe 2018, something like that. Yeah.
So like over the past like 5-6 years, it's like totally flip-flopped where the Star Trek is very linear. There's like 3 movies basically the past however many years. And I mean there are series for that too. Whatever. But Star Wars has just gotten really unwieldy for me where I'm just like, I can't follow all this crap. Now I think I've seen all of the movies as far as I know. Okay. I haven't seen the Clone Wars stuff. I think there is a feature length animated Clone Wars movie, but I know there was a series and stuff. Yeah. I haven't seen those. But like, let's see. The Acolyte, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Boba Fett.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen any of those. I'm trying to think what other Star Wars series there are. I've seen The Mandalorian, and there's only 2 seasons of that, I think. Okay, so I've seen that.
I want to say 2 or 3. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. Whether it's 2 or 3 for Mandalorian, I've seen all of those, and I'll see the movie and all that stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sorry. Like all these other I can't keep up with stuff, and I'm sure it's. Andor is the other one. I haven't seen that Andor, either. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I like The Mandalorian. I think it's a fun show. I think when it came out, it was it's a more novel thing. Like there wasn't really a Star Wars show, so it's like, oh, this is cool. We're following this different. Not Boba Fett, but like his one of his ilk, right? And it felt like there was, it felt like Jon Favreau did have his thumbprint on it a little more and stuff. It's just too much stuff that I don't really tend to care about. Ahsoka was in one of the Mandalorians, I think. So I don't know if that's technically a spinoff from Mandalorian, but and I like Rosario Dawson. I mean, they're putting money into this stuff. Like it's clear, like they're trying. I just, I don't know. I've gotten that way with the MCU though as well, where it's just too many series, and I'm just like, I don't like. She-Hulk is not going to show up and make an impact on any of these movies. Like, that's fine if people if they want to have a series about, what if Hulk was a lawyer, that's fine. Yeah. I only have a certain amount of things that I can care about in the MCU if there's 35 movies. Yep. So I don't know. So anyway, that's a long answer to your short question about how I feel about Star Wars.
You know what's funny is you and I are basically exactly the same in regards to Star Wars. I have not. I've seen as much as you have seen. Point by point. So this was probably a terrible question to ask, a terrible piece of news to bring up. But I've long talked about how I've never really been into Star Wars, and when Disney bought it and they announced the sequel trilogy, I was like, okay, this is when I'm gonna lock into it. This is when I'm going to get hooked into it. And then that sequel trilogy just like didn't work because they didn't. It is a storytelling issue, and it is so frustrating to me. Like, I love The Last Jedi. I think that's the best Star Wars movie all told. But it is so bizarre to me that this company can take this property and create so many offshoots from all of this different canon and all of the different lore and mythology and everything, and not have it seem at least cohesive, or have, like, it seems like they're throwing stuff at the wall. And like, that's my perspective as an outsider who hasn't seen a lot of these shows. And like, when The Acolyte was announced, and when I think I could be wrong, but I think Lucasfilm like rebranded the Star Wars timeline, and they had different segments, like, this is the fall of the Empire, this is the rise of the First Order, like, this is like categorizing where everything fits. And I was like looking at that, like looking at charts about that, thinking, okay, this is when I can get into it. Like, I can do this. And then like Acolyte is like the very beginning of everything. And now to see that they're just dumping it and not going to continue it just tells me like, okay, well, they still don't have like a cohesive plan. Like, they don't have this centralized idea. They don't know how to navigate this giant like decade long canon if they're just going to do the Acolyte and then dump it after one season, when apparently this first season like ends on like cliffhangers and has a lot of unresolved things. Like, what is the point of having a massive property if you're just going to do it conventionally with with storylines that aren't tied together and are just basically just like, hey, let's sell some toys, which I know is what Star Wars has always been basically, but it's annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well said. I mean, for me, when I was growing up, a lot of the avenue, as opposed to, because Disney Plus and subscribers and churn and all these things, like, it was video games, right?
Oh,
and I know they still make a lot of video games, but like, I remember playing, God, I don't even remember the name of them, but like all these different, well, like Rogue Squadron and, oh God, I should have looked the names up, but you know, where it's like something of the Sith, and where you're these different characters and you are side characters and you're not Luke or Darth Vader or anything, but like, you know, it's about the mechanics of the game. And of course I was just at that age where I'm like, when video games were really coming up, right? So
sure.
And then like the Phantom Menace game, I played a whole lot.
Oh, me
on
too.
The PC, you know, so like that was just a fun game. I don't even know in hindsight if it was a well-made game at all, but I had fun playing it. But regardless, like, that's, I think, where they used to put a lot of these sort of side quests, or however you want to put it. And now they're just putting so much money into all these series. And I know that they're still making video games, but it's just like, I don't know. I just think for me, that was a much more appetizing way into this universe sort of being expanded. Yeah. Whereas I don't know that, like, these series, like, is anyone watching one season of The Acolyte and they're like, oh, this is so amazing, then it's canceled? It's like, what does that do? You know, to your point, it's like, this doesn't speak to a larger narrative. So I don't know. It's the whole intersection of all this too, is like, Disney Plus especially is like getting up to this point where it's like, how much money do we need to get? Like, it's this whole formula that all these people are working, where it's like, you know, we need to, you know, all of these different formulas to how much money we need to put into a certain series, that even if it only lasts one season, it'll retain this amount of, you know, 6.2% people this quarter, and, you know, then it'll be worth it. It's like, okay, you know, like you said, I mean, I'm not naive to the fact, like, yeah, okay, it's all about money, but it's like, you know, it seems like right now, where you have the Mandalorian, is it called Mandalorian and Grogu? Like the movie that they're going to be developing. Yeah. You know, it's like, they keep getting, I think, in this like rock a hard place. It's like, how much do we want to spend on streaming versus how much we want to spend on theaters? And it's just like, it's so, you know, bizarre. It's like, I don't know, man, figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and like, a big part of it is also, like, I'm a fan of science fiction. I want to be into this brand.
Right.
And like, I mean, to circle back to something I've referenced in like talking about Patreon and stuff, but like, it would be better if it was just more cohesive and planned out, because like, look at something like, and granted this is a different medium, but like book series. James S.A. Corey, who I referenced doing the Mercy of Gods. It's the first installment of a 3-part space opera trilogy that Orbit Books is publishing. They like James S.A. Corey is the pen name of 2 writers, Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. They are coming off a 9-book series, the Expanse series, that was like clockwork. Like every year a new book came out. There were a couple of years where there were gaps, but 9 installments, 9 books, all like 500 to 600 pages. It is split up so well from like the first 3 are like a trilogy of sorts, and then the next 3 are another trilogy, the next 3 are another trilogy. And it's all encompassing, it's all expansive of this whole universe. And it's like, yeah, and I understand, again, these are books written by 2 people, and Star Wars is a massive thing with so many different hands in the pies or whatever. But like, just make it gel. Like, it sucks that like the sequel trilogy is basically J.J. Abrams saying, okay, well, let's introduce everyone to Rey. She has a mysterious past, but we're not going to say anything about it. And then Rian Johnson is like, okay, well, let's make this very interesting character choice to make it not mean anything. Make her be a nobody, so like everyone can be a Jedi. And then J.J. Abrams comes back and is like, "Oh no, wait, no, we're gonna tie her to someone else, and it'll be good. Somehow they'll return." And I'm just like, if that level of if a company is going to that level of laziness in creating the finished product of the story that they're selling us, like, I'm not gonna buy it. Like, I'm not gonna. It's if they're that lazy and they're that just hard up to just do a quick turnaround in terms of meeting the deadlines and pushing on an inferior product, I'm not going to entertain myself. I'm not going to entertain the idea that it's anything short of just bullshit. So yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. Yeah.
I had a lot of issues with the sequel trilogy overall, as much as I enjoyed Force Awakens. And, you know, so yeah, it's hard for me to buy into all this stuff. I mean, where it's just like, oh my God, like way too much crap. Like every streamer is putting out so much stuff. Yeah. And just desperate to clearing on to as many people. I'm just like, yep. I don't know what comes after this. I hope it's not Cable 2.0, but I'm just like, same. I just like, Jesus. Just like, stop with the like, oh my God, so much content. Like, just try to like focus up a little more and just make like less stuff. Maybe just make it a little better, thought behind it. Like, you know, Netflix is worse with that, obviously. Like they're the worst with, they will make anything. Oh, absolutely. And like all they need is for one of their 100 bets to pay off, and you know, they win the house. And anyway, so it's so funny too. And then we can move on to the next one. But like across the board, like streaming services, like you said, it's turning into Cable 2.0, and it's funny. Like I was watching. I've been watching The Office on Peacock, like just having it on in the background. And I have my Peacock subscription through my cable provider, so I have like the one with ads. And I saw like an ad for a show with some guy, like it was like basically your standard like procedural, but I think it was more of like a fantasy or sci-fi supernatural kind of bend. And like I think the hook of it is like this detective is like a skeptic, and he's dealing with these different things that are kind of X-Files-y, but light.
And I don't remember the name of it, but I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I recognize that guy I think he was in Rent. So I'm like, yeah, I like him. Maybe I'll check it out when it premieres. And like, I looked it up and it's like, oh, season 2 premieres in September. It's like, oh, this show exists. And I had no idea. Like, just the amount of shows that just like are not only that, but like I'll see headlines that's like, oh, this show that I thought premiered like a couple seasons ago is ending after 7 seasons. And I'm like, what is happening? It's a lot. It's a lot more difficult to lose track of the spinning plates because there's just way too many. Yes. So. And yeah. And speaking of streaming platforms and Peacock as well, this isn't anything to really like talk about because I haven't watched it or anything. I just want to announce that Homicide: Life on the Street is now available to stream for the first time ever in also I think remastered high def. It's available to stream on Peacock as of like last week, I think. Have you watched any of Homicide: Life on the Street?
I've never seen it. No, I always knew that this was kind of a precursor to The Wire, and that that this is one that David Simon had worked on before that. And my understanding is like there's just like some similarities in terms of the storytelling. So I've not watched it. I think it was yesterday that it had just it was just uploaded to available to stream on Peacock. So yeah, I'm interested to dig into that, but multiple seasons and everything. I think this was on in the late 90s.
Yep.
I'm gonna say
mid to late 90s, I think. I remember like my parents watching it when I was a kid. I remember specifically like Andre Braugher was in it, and there was a subplot involving him having a medical issue, and he had to spoilers for Homicide: Life on the Street, but his character has a stroke at some point. And so I think a stroke. And then like throughout the rest of the series, like his performance is a more physical like performance where he can't really speak that clearly. But I'm 99% sure that that's the case. But anyway, I'm very excited to check out Homicide: Life on the Street because I think it goes back to several years ago when I read TV the Book by I think Matt Zoller Seitz and Alan Sepinwall. I think it might have been, I'm pretty sure those are the two that wrote it. But they basically just counted down the top 100 American television shows, and they have like a whole section on the evolution of the cop drama and how like shows like Homicide: Life on the Street, Hill Street Blues, NYPD Blue were like those were the precursors for like more gritty dramas like NYPD Blue, or like one of my favorite shows of all time, The Shield. And so anyway, so I'm very curious to watch that. And Homicide: Life on the Street was adapted, or at least inspired by David Simon's book, Homicide: A Year on the Killing Streets, which I have read a lot of. I haven't finished it, but it's one of those that like I don't have the audiobook, so I just have the paperback, and it's like I can read, but it's just like my brain is broken.
So you can just watch the show now.
Exactly.
Now you can hear, now you can listen and see with your eyeballs. Yeah,
absolutely. And as I stammer and stutter over the fact that I haven't read this book that I've had for years and I've only read part of it, also check out my other podcast, Tower Junkies, where I talk about Stephen King and all of his writing and everything. But Homicide: Life on the Street is currently available to stream on Peacock, all 7 seasons, I believe, and I'm very excited to check it out. Of course, I am in the midst of rewatching Breaking Bad, which I don't know why I said of course, because I haven't said anything about it online anywhere or on the podcast, but that's been fun. So I don't know when I'll get to Homicide, so clip that audio and use it against me. I don't know when I'll get to Homicide. Okay. the last piece of news before we get into the actual reviews in this episode is that Gravitas Ventures nabs U.S. and Canadian rights to comedy Another Happy Day. Another Happy Day is a movie that it's a postpartum comedy starring Lauren Lapkus. And I wanted to highlight this because I feel like I've probably said it before on the podcast, and I will have to make sure that I clarify it once I say it, because Brent, I'm not sure if I don't know if you fall under this category, but I am a very proud piss pig. And piss pigs are what fans of the podcast Freedom refer to ourselves as. So Freedom is a comedy podcast with Lauren Lapkus, Scott Aukerman, and Paul F. Tompkins. And I've been a loyal listener, a very big fan of that show for a long time. So I knew that Lauren Lapkus starred in this movie, Another Happy Day, and I've been kind of like following it through its festival run, because like I've been hoping that it would maybe pop up here at Heartland, but I assume that it's not, since it's going to be released digitally on, I believe, October 1st in the US and Canada. So I feel like it's probably done with it's probably done with its festival run. But I also was just like, oh, it'd be so cool if I was able to, if I was able to like interview Lauren Lapkus for it, but I don't think that'll happen.
You said it's out on digital in October then?
Yes, October 1st, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. So I thought I would throw it out there for piss pigs and non-piss pigs alike. So yeah, the film's logline is: desperate for some company, delirious new mother Joanna tumbles into an unlikely friendship with her estranged aunt Miriam, a reclusive actress. Miriam seems the perfect companion for Joanna. She's artsy, honest, eccentric, and she hates babies. But all goes haywire when Joanna attempts to mother her aunt instead of her baby. Another Happy Day is an absurd, tense comedy exploring postpartum depression, intergenerational friendship, and what it means to be family. So I'm looking forward to that.
That'd be cool. I'd watch that. Yeah. So able to rent or whatever in October. It's not far at all.
Right. And Brent, are you a piss pig?
I've never listened to this podcast. I just saw a photo of Lauren Lapkus. She looks very familiar. I know who Scott Aukerman and Paul F. Tompkins are. So I haven't listened to them, but I know they're both funny guys, and yeah, I'd probably check that out.
Nice.
Yeah, I know Babes was just announced for the Hulu release. It's going to be September 30th.
Nice.
Which I haven't seen that one yet. That is not a postpartum comedy, but that is about it's like a motherhood comedy.
Yeah.
A lot of lasers in it, I know. And you already saw that, actually.
I did, and I reviewed it on the podcast. I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah. The pair in that movie, Alana Glazer and I can't remember, Melissa Boudreau, I think. The chemistry they had, like, it's great. Like I remember I reviewed it in episode 430. But I remember like reading that, like, oh, they've been friends for like 20 years or something like that. And it's like that chemistry, that like quick back and forth, that energy just comes through incredibly clearly in the movie. So, it's really fun. It's not quite as raunchy as you would expect it to be, but the trade-off there is that it's kind of a more heartfelt, like, friend drama. And it does that thing that I really love in kind of friendship dramas and friendship movies like that. It's where it has like two opposing people who are kind of going in different directions, or they're finding themselves drifting, and it's them kind of reconciling that and working out how they can still be in each other's lives. It's really good. I liked Babes quite a bit.
Yeah, I have a friend who a couple friends, they welcomed their first child
Nice.
a couple months ago, and I know she's a really big fan of like, she really likes like Broad City and just like Alana Glazer. So I remember like putting that on her radar and everything. And then I just texted today and said, hey, it's going to be on Hulu next month. And she was like, we already rented it. I'm like, well, that's
Nice.
Good. You're doing the good thing. And she's like, it was, it was worth it, because I was like, this is probably very up your alley. And it seems like she really enjoyed it. So it seems weird for me to recommend something that I haven't like seen first, but people, sometimes stuff comes up and I'm like, I think of people and I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't even seen it, but I have a feeling I should at least give it a shot.
Oh, absolutely. I totally get that for sure.
Do you get this? This is like a sidebar, but like, do you get this a lot where you recommend something to someone and then they're like, I didn't even know that existed? I feel like I get that a lot.
Oh yeah, I
where it's
definitely
like, I don't know if she said that specifically, but like, it's a lot of times. Like, I take for granted that people know movies that are coming out.
Right.
Honestly, because there's so much crap like we talked about earlier.
Exactly. I was just going to say, it circles back to what we were saying before. It's just oversaturation. Like today, I like at work, my coworker was like, oh, how was your weekend? And I was like, oh, it was really good. And like, I feel kind of bad in retrospect because I was like, I didn't. Here's also the thing. This is a tangent, but I need to start doing things. Because if my coworkers, like, I'm still new at the company that I'm working at, if my coworkers keep asking me like, oh, what'd you do this weekend? Like every single time it's like, oh, I went to the movies. I went to the movies. I saw a movie. And like today I was like, yeah, I saw the new Alien movie. And then like in my head, I was like, well, if I have an opening, I'll probably also say, oh yeah, I saw Didi too. And I assume that they'd be like, well, I don't even know what that is. And then I would have been like, well, it's a coming of age movie. Also, as I said in my Letterboxd review, Motion City soundtrack fans, we are so freaking back, which we'll talk about later in this episode. But anyway, that I don't know where I was going with that. Just that I need a life and I need to do more things outside of going to the movies.
You used to know that people saw the same TV spots that you did in the 90s. Oh yeah. You can watch different channels and there's different demographics.
Right.
But like, you probably know like what blockbusters are generally coming out that summer. I don't expect everyone to know the whole movie release calendar. Right. But it's just so different now where it's like, you don't know how movies are getting advertised to people.
Yeah.
At all.
There's so many different ways. Yeah. Like, time was people would see trailers before movies or TV spots or posters or something, and then they dial up their little internets and load up their little internet movie databases. But here it's like, okay, well, we're in an era where most people are just watching streaming stuff, and if they're springing for ad-free stuff, they're not seeing anything. And if they're seeing they're swiping away on TikTok and swiping away ads and not sitting for them, or they are skipping ads on YouTube, or they're just ignoring the banners on social media when they're scrolling. Like, there are so many different ways to just get a movie or show in front of people, like in people's minds, basically. And I feel like oftentimes the general public probably isn't aware of it until it's like the promoted thing on the streaming platform when they load it the day that it's released. Like, perfect example. I can't say anything about it because as of this release, the embargo doesn't lift until midnight Thursday night. But like, I would be willing to bet that that people listening to this day on Thursday, August 22nd, I'm willing to bet that people listening to this are not aware that Netflix has a raunchy R-rated teen sex comedy called Incoming that is coming out tomorrow as of the release of this episode. Because I didn't know. So I don't know. So anyway,
like, Netflix is the worst with that. Like, I literally had a screenshot on my Just Watch of last Wednesday. A really fantastic documentary called Daughters came out on Netflix. and literally right next to it was a Matt Rife
Oh, Jesus
Crowdworks
Christ.
special.
Yeah.
And I was like, that literally this screenshot that I just took, like, this sums up the streaming era.
Yeah.
Like, this sums up Netflix oversaturation.
Yeah.
Like, this wonderful, like, small gem of a documentary about, imprisoned fathers and them doing like a father-daughter dance and them getting it's like so heartfelt, so amazing. And then I didn't even see the Matt Rife. I don't really care about him, but it was just like, so anyway, it was like the classic, like, and both these things exist on the same streaming platform on the same day.
Yeah.
So
like, imagine, and this, I promise we'll get to the reviews. I swear to God. All I will say about that is imagine getting successful. Like imagine being successful in your chosen field, and then getting an opportunity to get on like the national stage, or like get promoted to a big role in that arena, and then fucking it up so bad, but then also getting a second chance with something that's more tailored to the very, very small sample of stuff that made you successful. I don't know.
The Matt Rife guy.
Yeah.
We tried to watch like 5 minutes of the special, and it was just not to my taste, would be the diplomatic way of saying it. And whatever he's doing, but just even the poster was just like, he just had the SEG, and it's just like, and I was like, it's crazy that like the Daughters, which by that point I had seen. I mean, and I had already known about like anyway, regardless, point is that like, I was just like, I cannot believe these two things are dropping on a Wednesday, and no one probably knows about either of them.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, so anyway.
Yeah.
It's just that's Netflix for you, man.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to next Wednesday when the Neighbors follow-up documentary comes out, where it's all just crowd work. Yeah. Speaking of, well, no, I can't say that because slight spoilers for Alien Romulus.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
You can't do spoiler segues.
No, I cannot. So let's get into our reviews tonight. Brent, are you ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right. So, of course, we're going to do a featured review and then a supplemental secondary review. The feature review tonight is for Alien Romulus, which is currently in theaters. It released in theaters on August 16th, 2024. Released only in theaters. It was originally going to be a Hulu drop, but they switched it over to a theatrical release. And the premise, according to IMDb, is, while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. Matt Rife, who does crowd work. Oh, interesting. Director for this movie was Fede Alvarez. Writers are Fede Alvarez and Rodo Sayaguez. I'm butchering that, I apologize. Cast includes Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renew, Isabella Merced, Spike Fern, and Eileen Wu. And Brent, we're of course going to do a non-spoiler review and then spoiler review. I'll play a clip from the trailer to bring us into the spoiler section. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of Alien Romulus, do you want to give a quick rundown of your relationship with the Alien franchise that runs from Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, the Alien vs. Predator movies, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant?
Yeah, I've seen the first 3 Alien movies. I've not seen Resurrection. Haven't seen Alien versus Predator, either of those. Saw Prometheus, saw Covenant, and then now I've seen Romulus. So nice. I guess you could say sort of took a break there in the Resurrection AVP chasm. So I think this is one of those franchises where, the first 2, I mean, really are such, I think I referred to them as the Twin Peaks in my review, where not like Twin Peaks, the David Lynch series, but like very clearly like the 2, apexes of this franchise. And then I think everything else in terms of at least ones that I've seen or just reputation, just kind of like, I don't know, diminishing returns. I mean, you know, 3, I think, has definitely some neat things like going for it. You know, Prometheus and Covenant. I mean, you have Ridley Scott returning. There's some interesting things there. Some that are really dumb for both of those movies, which I rewatched. So I'm kind of, you know, the first 2 I think are, you know, pretty tough to, you know, to disagree with. I think they're both very different movies within the same franchise too, which is neat. It struck me rewatching Aliens, which I had not seen the special edition, but of how much of a step up that was in 2 years for James Cameron between Terminator and that.
Yeah.
Not like Terminator is a bad movie, but just in terms of scale. It's just like insane how much more you can see, like some things in terms of like effects and kind of the sci-fi sort of like premise, but it's just so much more muscular filmmaking overall, just in terms of like, it just looks gargantuan, even all these years later. And then the first Alien, I mean, there's not really, it's kind of its own thing. I feel like the first Alien is like, there's no other movie, other movies like it. Yeah. But like, there's really only like Alien, you know? Kind of like Jaws in a weird way. It's like any other shark movie. It's like, okay.
It's like the gold standard.
Their descendants very much descend. Yeah, gold standard really is what it is. So, and I feel like Alien is just still such a shot in the arm. We rewatched that one as well. Aubrey had not seen Aliens, any of them. Oh, wow. She was just like, you know, imagine watching the chest burster scene for the first time, you know, and it's just like, and finding out that Ash is an android and like not knowing that. And, you know, just seeing, I mean, she had probably seen the xenomorphs before, but anyway, all that sort of thing. It's a joy to behold the first time. So, I mean, all that to say, I think for me, it's a pretty scattered franchise. I can't say that I'm, you know, in a way, it's almost kind of, I'm maybe the easiest target for it because I have fond memories of the first 2. And so it's like, well, I know there's been bad sequels, so how bad could this one be? You know, that sort of thing. It's like the floor is pretty low, I guess. Not that any of the ones that I've seen are super bad. But anyway, all that to say, I think, Romulus, I thought was a good, solid base hit. I don't think it really moves the franchise forward like much at all. I don't think it really, you know, makes me see it in a new light. But I think it's a fun chapter, and I think it definitely has some good things going for it. It has some things against it, but I think people are probably gonna have more fun with it than Prometheus and Covenant. Having Fede Alvarez come in, it's definitely more of a definitely has more of a horror bend to it, which we'll talk about. But so overall, I thought it was diverting and fun.
Nice. That's interesting because I feel like I'm going to be speaking a little bit more highly on it than you are. So this is going to be interesting. It's so interesting to view this franchise collectively because, like you said, Alien and Aliens are tough to beat. Even with my kind of lukewarm reception to a lot of James Cameron's work, Aliens is incredible. Like, Aliens is an incredible movie. And Alien itself is one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's, you hit on that so well that yes, like thinking about genre movies, horror, science fiction, what have you, like there's Alien is like a gold standard for alien movies. You know, like Jaws is for shark movies, like The Exorcist is for exorcism movies. Alien is in that pantheon, and yes, there are diminishing returns. I didn't rewatch Alien 3 or Resurrection. I do remember liking Resurrection, surprisingly, enough. I never saw any of the, either of the Alien versus Predator movies, but I am kind of an apologist for Prometheus and Covenant. It's an interesting, kind of prequel storyline. And when rewatching Prometheus, for in preparation for Romulus, two things struck me. One is that it was a little bit annoying because it felt like, and I say this with the utmost respect for Damon Lindelof, and I am a hardcore, diehard fan of Lost. I will go to my grave defending Lost in its entirety. But Prometheus really felt like Damon Lindelof and the co-writer, whoever it was, I can't remember. It felt like they studied Alien, studied the pieces of it that were left up to question, like analyze the H.R. Giger artwork and everything, and then decided to fit like a backstory into it that didn't really gel with me, with my thoughts about like, oh, that's what that was, that's what this is, that's how this is going. Like, it's going, like, these two movies go a long way toward leading to like, oh, xenomorphs. And it just seems like a weird, like very convoluted storyline that doesn't feel like quite as satisfying upon rewatch. But the other thing that struck me about rewatching these two movies before Romulus is that it's clear, and I believe that Ridley Scott had said it, that he wanted to make like a trilogy, like he wanted to make 3 movies, and like nothing happened after Covenant. And it's like, I want to know like what the end of that story is, because Romulus is different. It's set between Alien and Aliens. There's some connections to the franchise as a whole, to different installments and everything, but for the most part, this isn't a continuation of Covenant by any stretch. But in that respect, Romulus kind of really caught me by surprise, because I enjoy what I've seen of Fede Alvarez's work, but the movie just seems so like in tune with the franchise as a whole. Like, there are some fan service stuff that was overdone, and we'll talk about that in spoilers, but for the most part, like, it gets the feel of the Alien universe. It gets the feel of the drama of the human characters in an interesting new way that kind of harkens back a little bit to Alien and the whole like long haul truck drivers in space motif, if you will, or theme. And it just, overall, it was fun. It was a blast. It was scary. It was frightening. There are moments with the face huggers in particular that just like made my skin crawl a little bit, which I really appreciated. And there was a lot of really fun stuff in this, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So let's talk in non-spoilers about Alien Romulus. Brent, anything jump out at you?
Getting back to like what you were saying in terms of the franchise, I think maybe one of the reasons it's maybe a little hard for me to pin down like where this is almost in the things, because I kind of think of this franchise almost in pairs. It's like Alien and Aliens, AVP and like Requiem, like 3 and 4, even though I haven't seen Resurrection. Those are both like in the 90s.
Yeah.
David Fincher, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, I think, did Resurrection. So like kind of coming in with different directors and just going out there and just doing your own thing. And then Covenant and Prometheus with like Ridley Scott's. And then this kind of feels like, is this the third one? And of course, like it's not the third in Ridley Scott's trilogy. So I almost don't kind of know where to place it. And that's kind of where the franchise, I guess, is for me now. But so yeah, I mean, I think Fede Alvarez with him coming in, I think he definitely knows like, how to build tension, pay off some really nice, like just gnarly gore, the stuff that does go back to the first Alien. And like he has no problem, like this, we're probably getting even more in-depth, like visceral chest bursting in this than even any of the other ones. And, definitely tapping into the scares without like spoiling too much or anything. There's a lot of like xenomorph stuff and things that we've seen before, but there are maybe some other creatures that we haven't seen before. So I think he has a lot of fun with those and neat creature design there.
Oh yeah.
So I think all that stuff is strong. I think for me, it just comes down more to like, there's, I think, some really promising storytelling early on in this, when you're on that mining colony with Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson's characters, basically the 6 characters that we meet.
Yeah.
There's like some good stuff there. And then I kind of feel like once we get on the ship, it's just sort of like on autopilot, so to speak. It's just, it's kind of like you said like a couple minutes ago, like it's like all roads lead to Xenomorph. Like Ridley Scott can tell his story about like how, you know, if if people met their creators and God would say they hated them, you know, and that sort of thing. It's like these are all very interesting existential questions. And Billy Crudup's character in Covenant, very man of faith or man of science. It's like, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but you kind of know there's going to be a Xenomorph on top of the ship. You know?
Exactly.
It's like, that's no matter what, it has to come down to that. So I almost feel like Alvarez, in a way, doesn't really even try to resist that. And you know, as frustrated as I got with things like Prometheus and Covenant for being maybe a little too ponderous, it's like this just kind of feels like the more Empty Calories is too derisive, but just to say that I think he's kind of going more for the I don't know, just for the like kind of the bigger set pieces that are that's going right for the thrills, and I don't have a problem with that, because I do think there's some really fun scenes here. I just it would have been nice just to have things go. I guess I don't really know. I don't even know where I want this franchise to go. I mean, it's between Alien and Aliens, you said, chronologically. Yeah. It's when Sigourney Weaver's character, it's when Ripley is drifting off in space. It happens during this movie. So it's like, I don't know. I just, there was some really promising stuff early on. I felt like the character development, and then it kind of just doesn't matter for me. It didn't matter.
Yeah. But. Yeah, that's where I kind of come in at, and I'm a little bit struggling with it as well, because I did love the spectacle of it. I really enjoyed the spectacle of it. It is very much out of reverence for the franchise. Like, Fede Alvarez clearly knows what he's working with, for better or worse in some cases. But like, I'd read in trivia that like he used some of the like sound design, like the saving, the saving sound effect from the Alien Isolation video game, in parts of it. Like, that kind of deep cut of a reference is something that's done out of reverence for the franchise and not fan service like some other things. But that level of subtlety is something that I really enjoyed. But the kind of the trade-off of that is, I agree with you. That beginning is a really interesting and unique introduction to this installment, in that it's these colonists on a planet where they are basically they can't work, like they're basically conscripted to Weyland-Yutani, doing manual labor, hard work, terraforming a planet, and they're given the runaround. They can't escape their life. They can't escape that work intensive life. And so that's the kind of jumping off point that, like, yeah, we're going to steal some stuff from this space station and go to another system and start a new life. Like, it's in terms of space thieves, it's a very noble endeavor. And then, like you said, when they get to the space station, it not only became just like, okay, that was the setup, now this is the payoff to what you paid for your ticket for, instead of the characterization. There's some good characterization that kind of follows through throughout the movie, but like that kind of the intensive like character building in the beginning kind of falls by the wayside, so much so that I was a little bit annoyed that the two men in the group, like, I had trouble telling them apart, had trouble telling like their relation to each other. I thought they were cousins, but I don't know. And then there's a connection to another character that I think is implied, but also doesn't really, like, I left thinking like, are they together? No, I don't know. So I don't know. It was a little bit muddled there, but again, the xenomorph stuff, the alien stuff was really freaking cool. Like,
Yeah.
it was really cool. It was really cool. So,
Yeah. I mean, getting back, I totally agree with what you say about I literally kept putting them as bloke in my notes because I couldn't tell them apart.
Mhm.
I generally had a hard time understanding what they were saying other than like just the general. And again, it's like, it's not hard hitting dialogue. I don't really need to like dissect everything, but like whatever. And so like, yeah, that was a real tricky thing for me. I mean, I would even say outside of, for me, I mean, you have 6 people here really. So Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson, like they do a great job. David Johnson especially is really fantastic in this. And I really love what they did with this character. A lot in this, a big thing in the franchise is ominous robots or androids or synthetics or whatever. And I think they do a really cool thing in this movie where they start out where he is, it reminded me of like after Yang a little bit, where he's a lot more kind of like, penitent, like reserved, and like he tells like these dad jokes and stuff, and he's very different from the kind of androids that we see in the Alien franchise, certainly. Whereas the androids, you know, they a lot of times they like disguise themselves on ship and stuff, and then they, you know, whatever, all this stuff, and they end up being kind of the second antagonist. He has a much more interesting role, his character does, in this movie. You know, there's like upgrades that are done and it changes his personality. It's just a really, really strong performance, not just generally, but I think like that is one thing I would say like this movie does really different in the way that it handles like its main kind of android character. So I thought that was cool.
I agree. Yeah.
So like those two I think do like a really solid job. Kaylee I think is kind of just doing her own kind of like trailblazing, like, you know, just kind of taking the reins. Really very smart character, comes up with a lot of solutions, capable, all these sort of things. So like both of them are great. I just feel like the other 4, I'm sorry, like even like Eileen Wu, you know, some characters are gonna get, I shouldn't even say her necessarily, but just like, you know, people are gonna go down, and I just like, I think that's one of the things rewatching Alien and Aliens is like, man, you have some really great. And I just I rewatched Predator last night.
Oh yeah,
which Aubrey had not seen that as well. And like, my God, you want to talk about a deep bench of like character? And that is the joy.
Yeah,
that is the joy, is getting to know them. And that for me, like, I agree. The Xenomorph stuff is really fun in this. I didn't get that side of it with like the care. I just think they could have done maybe better with the casting. I don't think Isabella Merced is like a bad actress by any means, or Archie. Sorry, the other two, Spike and Archie. Sorry, the 2 British guys. I don't think they're necessarily bad actors. I just don't think they really, you know, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is casting or acting, but there's just something that those other movies have that you just feel like is sorely missing here, where you're just like, oh, these are just some other folks, and it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the characters of Bjorn and Tyler, Archie and Spike, it's so funny because yes, like I said, and we both said we kind of had trouble telling them apart. There's a moment where like there's like kind of a jump scare where part of one of, I think it's Bjorn, their fingers get frozen by the cryogenic like steam or whatever. And I had this moment where I was like, oh, thank God. The movie is giving one of them a physical attribute so I can tell them apart. And then
it's like Michael Scott with the Sharpie in the Benihana Christmas episode.
Exactly. And I was surprised because that went nowhere. Like that is not something that plays into anything. It's just like, oh my God, my fingers. I remember
the moment you're talking about, but in terms of what they're doing with anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a little bit, a little bit irritating or a little bit underwhelming in that respect. But again, like you said, the David Johnson of it all as playing Andy, like that, that performance was great. The arc of the character was fantastic. And like, I'm all for a character telling dad jokes in the midst of an alien attack. Yeah. I also really liked two things about it that seem to harken back to a lot of probably all of the franchise. That ticking clock aspect of it, like they have a set amount of time before everything goes to shit, and that level of tension is kind of palpable throughout it. And the other thing was the not reliance, but the commitment to the franchise's tried and true relationship with body horror, which we'll talk about it in spoilers, but there's some really cool things. Like when rewatching Prometheus, I really like that movie. I enjoy it a lot. But like the standout of that movie is the kind of alien abortion scene, where she's in the pod and she's being operated on by a robot. And there's stuff similar to that in this movie. There's stuff that like will stick with me and is some really cool body horror stuff. While also doing its part to be an alien movie. Like you've got the standard, face hugger stuff as well. That's a good marriage of several different elements that make the horror and science fiction and body horror in particular elements work so well. It's just a shame that, some of the characterization isn't there.
Yeah, you mentioned that ticking time thing. Like that's definitely a thing in Alien, like when she has like 10 minutes to go back, to run back and disengage the self-destruct, and then it's too late. And then in Aliens, that's very much a thing. They're always under the clock. So that's a good call out, because that's something in Romulus, and there's a moment where they think they have this much time and it's a lot less.
Yes.
And that was it. I agree. That's a cool moment where it's like plan changed, So I like that. You're definitely right. You need that pressure cooker element of the story.
Absolutely.
To keep things tense. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And also space sequences. One of the kind of not really issues with the franchise, but one of the kind of shortcomings in some respects in some of these installments is it is more like I love Alien to death, and but it kind of seems like a lot of these movies are basically like, okay, space, we're going to a location. We're on LV426, or is it L427? I think it's 426. Anyway, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's then like Aliens, we're on Hadley's Hope, and we're on the planet for Prometheus, we're on the planet for Covenant, and then we don't get like the space spectacle stuff. And this is really good in that respect, and I think it does a good job of changing things up, because it is this derelict space station that has this kind of like it's in orbit on this planet and is about to fall into the rings of the planet and be destroyed. So we get a lot of really cool like exterior shots of the space element of it, and like it just really floored me, and it made me very excited in those moments, because I love a good space sequence. Yeah, it definitely does a good job. It's a good point. Now you mentioned it with Prometheus and Covenant. Yeah, it's pretty much on the planets, a lot of that stuff, and you do lose that. That's a big part of Alien, is how freaking quiet and scary outer space is. So I think you lose that when it's always boots on the ground. So yep. So do you want to transition over to spoilers for Alien Romulus, or is there anything else in non-spoilers you want to talk about?
No, let's go to spoilers. Sounds good.
All right, sweet. All right, well, we are going to go into spoilers for Alien Romulus. Before we do that, Brent, real quick, what did you rate it on Letterboxd, and also tell people where they can find your work online as well?
I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's, like solid. I like it more than Covenant. Oh, the characters are smarter in this movie than they are in Covenant.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Large margin.
Yeah. And Prometheus too, honestly.
And Prometheus, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know between this and Prometheus what I prefer more. I don't know. I'd probably say Romulus at this point.
Interesting.
I think, I think probably Romulus, and then it's just an uneven thing. I don't know compared to Alien 3, but it's just like, the huge mountains that are Alien and Aliens cannot be traversed. But it's a fun time, and I would say that there is a good amount of fan service that we'll get into, but I don't think you need to know a ton necessarily about the Alien world. I think even more so than Prometheus and Covenant, I think you could pretty much go into this as just like a horror movie first, and I think you'd probably be able to pick up a lot of the stuff.
I totally agree. And yes, the characters are smarter for sure. Just like it always bothers me in Prometheus when I think it's Rafe Spall's character is like, they see an alien, they see a life form on this planet, and he is treating it like he's seeing it like a cat. I'm just like, you deserve everything that's happening to you, character in this movie. Jesus. And they're scientists. Like anyway. I rated Alien Romulus 3.5 stars. I think I am more partial to Prometheus because despite that, I do really like the existential element of Prometheus. And while Romulus is more of a spectacle and more, personal story for the characters and not dealing with big themes or big ideas like that. I'm just gravitate more toward Prometheus and the more kind of thought-provoking science fiction that it provides. So that is our non-spoiler review for Alien Romulus. Also, Brent's work can be found at awakenthedark.com.
Thank you.
So yes. So we're going to go into spoilers for Alien Romulus. If you want to check the show notes for timestamps to navigate around it, those timestamps are in your podcast app, whatever you're using to listen to this, or you can go to obsessiveviewer.com/OV439. Now I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. When we come back, we're going to be spoiling Alien Romulus.
Are you sure you want to do this? There she is. You want to break in and steal highly regulated equipment.
This could be our only ticket out of here. Should be in and out in 30 minutes.
Welcome to the Romulus Space Station.
All right, so spoilers on for Alien Romulus. Like I said, it is in theaters. It was released on August 16th, 2024. And Brent, let's dig into spoilers. First, let's talk about Ian Holm and as much as the world is gravitating more toward more streaming stuff, like bigger things. I don't know how I'm digging myself a grave here, but I am surprised that there's still an element of Uncanny Valley in de-aging, like digital features and things like that, because that kind of bothered me a little bit. Not so much the fact that they brought Ash or a version of Ash called Rook. That is 100, like it is Ian Holm who died in 2020. It's not so much that they did that. It's just that it still looks off. And like, in my brain, I was like, this looks computer generated. It looks kind of bad in a few shots. And all I kept thinking is, I just rewatched Alien. Like, I know they have a wealth of footage to go off of. Like, why does it look so cheap, all things considered? So, I don't know. What did you think of the extended cameo of the extended posthumous cameo of Ian Holm?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple kind of things about this well, I guess there's really three things. One is the philosophy behind, are we cool with like de-aging actors who aren't around anymore, and this sort of like necrophilic thing we have with like bringing these people back for legacy sequels who from beyond the grave. So like, should we have done this sort of thing is one. 2 is the actual element of the technology. How good is it? How realistic does it look? Kind of speaking to the thing that you just said. And then there's this kind of third category for me that's kind of the bigger issue, which is like, why did we have to do this? Not from a philosophical thing, like whether it's okay or if the technology is there, but like, why did we need to have a version of Ash back? Like,
right.
Is this something that like Alien fans are supposed to really pine after, that we get to see Ash again? I know it's Rook. Okay, so that was one question I had. Okay, so Rook is the Romulus's version of Ash. Do I have that right?
Yeah, from my understanding, it's basically the same model. And I believe in Aliens, Bishop, which I also thought that was kind of nice, Bishop and Rook. But Bishop like refers to the Ash model, like that model as being an inferior thing because that was 50 some years in the past and in the chronology of that. So I think that like it makes sense on paper because we know in the chronology of the franchise that model that was Ash in the first movie was faulty. Like presumably the entirety of that line of model of synthetics were faulty and were able to kill people. So that makes sense why they would connect it to that, especially given that it ends up manipulating Andy and reprogramming Andy and which I thought was great. But I also agree, like why do that with I would have been fine if he was still alive and he decided like he did the voice for it and was, or what have you, or gave his like, I don't know, with like if they de-aged him as an alive person, but like with him having passed away, it feels a little bit like a very, very thin line.
Couldn't we just have done a different actor?
Yeah.
I mean, so this goes back to what I was saying in the non-spoiler section. Like, we don't have, I feel like look, these are younger actors. I think, Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson, I think, quite frankly, are probably the best of this crew anyway.
Yeah.
We don't really have a super deep bench of character actors. Get someone else in there who is a recognizable face, who you can still... Don't put them in the promos. Don't put them in. Still have them be a surprise. Mm-hmm. And who cares if they're in the Alien franchise? I don't care. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, just have it be a cool. That's the way we used to do things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We used to just cast people because they were cool, good actors, and not. Yeah. Oh, they were from that movie from 1979.
Right.
Like, let's dig them up. Like, who the hell is going to this movie? Like, oh, I need that. I need to see Ash. Like, I need it, man, even though it's technically not. Like,
right.
Anyway, it's stupid. I mean, again, there's different reactions you can have to the philosophical, like, do we really need to keep doing this? Like, in terms of, like, digging people up. The technology thing, which I agree with you, by the way, I don't think it looks convincing. But there's that third thing of, like, let's just do something new for the love of God.
Yeah.
Like, just anything new. You can even have him act like Ash. I'll tell you what, I'll even give you this. You can even have a photo of Ian Holm and you can have Rook say, yeah, I'm programmed like Ash.
Right.
Cut right to Ash and say, okay, let's have our brains do something for a second where we think, oh, okay, remember how Ash was an alien? That's how this guy's going to behave.
Right.
Or woman. I don't care. It doesn't matter. The point is that it's a different, deceptive android that's played by a living person. I'm sorry. Like, you get a more expressive performance. They can do all the whole thing. So that's more actually my biggest disappointment isn't even with the morality or the technology. Sure. Just like, it's just the banality. I think it's the biggest thing. It's just so like,
it doesn't serve
such a boring choice to me. And not that, I mean, of course, Ian Holm is, wonderful in the first film. That's not the issue, but it just, the way they did it.
It is pure fan service, even though I did give it that kind of explanation there. It is done out of fan service. It's not done out of necessity for the plot. It's done for that purpose of being like, hey, remember this, the member berries aspect of it. And it just
who cares?
Yeah,
Who is
exactly.
This is what I don't understand about. Okay, just taking a step back from all this. If you have series where you're thinking, oh, if I wait to watch The Acolyte next week, maybe whatever, God, I don't care. Jabba the Hutt will show up, you know?
Yeah.
This is a 2-hour movie. You're paying for the ticket. You're already in. Like,
Yeah.
God, have we not learned how big fall offs are after the first week? What kind of word of mouth are people going to be like, oh, yeah, it was a pretty good movie, but Ash from Alien is, and oh my God, I have to see it.
Exactly. Like
who cares about this fan servicey like crap anymore, especially in regard to movies? I think with series, it's this idea that, oh, well, if you stick around, you know, which I even think that's annoying, but like, with the movie thing, it's just like, there was no suggestion I saw in any of the trailers or anything that Ian Holm was going to be, brought back for this or anything. I think it takes away from the movie. Why do it? Why are we still doing this?
And this is, and here's the thing with this. There is an alternative to this that could have worked really well. And like, I know that I'm just such a, I'm a fanboy at this point for Mike Flanagan. I respect the hell out of his work. I love everything that he touches is great to me. So I'm coming from a place of being a fanboy, but like, look what he did with Dr. Sleep. He had actors who resembled like Shelley Duvall and Scatman Crothers. He had what's his face? Oh my God, the guy who played Elliot in E.T. I can't remember his name. But he cast him in the Jack Nicholson role when Danny goes to the Overlook and he sees the the spirit of his father. He didn't do like
Isn't it Henry Thomas? Is that right?
Henry Thomas, I think.
I think there's a third. There's a third first name in there somewhere, like Andrew. Henry Thomas, something like that. But,
something like that.
He's a good actor. I know he's on a lot of Mike Flanagan stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
I agree. Henry Thomas. Just get more creative with it.
Yeah.
Like I get, Dr. Sleep is tied even more intrinsically or inextricably linked to The Shining. So that I didn't have a problem with. I thought it was, plus Jack Nicholson is still alive at that time.
Yeah.
Shelley Duvall was still alive. Like that's just how he's choosing to do it. And that's, I didn't have a problem with that.
Oh, exactly. Because he's having actors play them and he's manipulating their image a little bit, but it's not like it's not gratuitous in the way, like it's not a gratuitous kind of fan service thing. It's more like, okay, yeah, Henry Thomas can look like Jack Nicholson. Let's do that. Let's not do this. Like let's not just completely digitally, fabricate 1980 Jack Nicholson for this one scene. Let's have an actor portray him. And it's just
to me, I mean, again, this is where I fall in more in that third bucket of like it's just boring, and to me it's the safe choice. And this is probably 20th or whatever, and this is Disney's effect. I mean, this is one part of this that I haven't really heard people talk about is like the Disneyification of 20ths, their franchises. Whereas interestingly enough, Deadpool, which we talked about earlier in this, that's another conversation about, marveling and Disneyfying Deadpool and that whole other thing. That's a whole other conversation. But regardless, them just not trusting new stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so it's just, it's artistically, overly conservative, bankrupt, whatever you want to say. So it was disappointing. I wasn't, I knew that Ian Holm had passed a few years ago, and I was just like, anytime I see that stuff, I'm just like, boring. Yeah. I just instantly, my brain is just like, boring choice. I come to the movie to see faces. I'm sorry. Like, I'm seeing this in IMAX.
Come here for magic.
I come here for faces, man.
Yes.
It's like Bishop. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, when they cast all these people in Aliens, were they like, okay, well, Alien, everyone really liked that, so let's cast people in Aliens that look like, no, Bishop doesn't look anything like Ash.
Right.
He acts differently than, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. It's a character thing, but like, just even the more fundamental thing in terms of casting is just like, it's okay. Just cast someone else. Trust actors.
Yes.
I don't get it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, I didn't remember that Ian Holm had passed away. So I was like wondering, like, I wonder if he did like the voice for it, but
I knew it had been a few years ago. I didn't remember exactly when, but that's a whole other thing. What you mentioned in the second category of technology, where it's like, I'm sorry, I can kind of tell when there is the actor playing a de-aged version of themselves versus a totally different actor who has the dots and is made to look. It's a different thing. I'm telling you, like, I think de-aging looks better than just total facial morphing, deep faking, basically.
Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
you can really call that. It's like, it's different if you're like, oh, well, Nick Fury needs to look different in this movie because it takes place in the 90s.
Right.
And Sam Jackson, he's still, of course, around. He's still in these movies.
Sure.
And so he's being de-aged. I'm just taking Captain Marvel as an example. But like that, I think that process works better because you're still, and because I know Sam Jackson did things in his performance to modulate how he, like his gait and his posture, to try to think, okay, we looked at footage from Die Hard with Vengeance. Which is in 95, which is when Captain Marvel takes place. And he's like, okay, well, like, how, and this is a character, but still, I mean, you know, you move kind of different. And so I appreciate and we're talking about performance now. And this comes back to like, just hire good actors and let them do their thing. I don't know how else to say it.
And I think that the kind of bottom line about this is that it is going back to the kind of comments about it being the technology not being there. Like, it's insane to me that this uncanny valley exists in this example specifically because it's literally a robot. Like, that's a great point. Exactly. It should give it some leeway to make it look not realistic, but still like look like realistic within the world. But we're still pointing out like, oh my God, like the facial like contortions don't really seem authentic or anything, and not in a sense of this is a robot talking. It's more like, oh, they skimped on the visual effects for it in post-production. Like, that's bothersome to me. I just hope they just stop doing it. I don't know. Me too. I think they're getting some blowback on this, and I'm glad that they are, quite frankly, because I think it's just annoying, and I just sort of tend to tune it out. But anyway, so that's all the Ian Holm stuff. I'm glad we talked about it because I did have it on my mind. But where I think this movie really excels are like the elevator shaft sequence at the end. I think was probably my favorite, even though it does end on an Aliens fan servicey bit. But whatever. It's just like I liked that kind of sheepish way that he said "bitch." Like it that felt nice. I liked that, but I was also kind of rolling my eyes a little bit. But
it's kind of like Key and Peele's like, "Acid," and then and then David looks around. Acid,
exactly.
So I thought that was fun. The other zero gravity sequence is fun, where they're avoiding the acid blood and stuff, and like really the way her gun shoots, I thought was so awesome. The way it aims, and I know that's very similar to Aliens, but they show the way that it can auto target in a way that's, I think, different than Aliens. So so that was cool.
It also helps with this. It helps sell the fact that like, they're miners. They work in mines. Like, they're not going to have military training or anything. And that gives them that kind of like leeway there. The "stay away from her, you bitch" line. This is so dumb. I swear this is so dumb. Given the chronology of this movie being in between Alien and Aliens, I like in my head, I wanted him to follow up with like, with him saying like, I guess it's too early for that, but your queen is gonna love it.
Or you wonder if Ripley woke up for a second wherever she was in space, and it's like, that's a good line, and then just fell back asleep. Yeah, stuff like that is just what that stuff is fan service that I'm just like, okay, that's
It's
more
like,
a
all
laugh
right.
line. Whereas like
Yes.
that's sort of whatever.
Yes.
I don't care about that. But
but the zero gravity acid
mhm.
blood was that I was really into. I thought that was really pretty clever and fun. That was a good element to it.
The other sequence where they raise the temperature
Yes.
to disguise their body heat was very going back to what I saw last night, Predator.
Mhm.
But that sequence reminded me a lot of like what he's doing with like Don't Breathe, where it's very much a like sort of like sound design driven set piece. So like just stuff like that. Yeah, like that's fun. I mean, that's this kind of stuff that not only do you go to an alien movie for, but just like you go to, an action, horror, any kind of sci-fi, any sort of thing. You just kind of go for the movies for that sort of stuff. So I think Fede, that's where I think it's where Alvarez like, I think really shines. We rewatched his Evil Dead remake as well. And
Nice.
Again, like he's not a strong character guy. Like that's not his strength. His strength is like the set pieces, and he does a great job. Like he brings that. So if that's why you hire him, like he does a good job with that aspect. So definitely playing to his strengths with those scenes for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And the I as much as we kind of have dogged the characterization and everything, I do want to point out that there's an interesting, like very light, like social commentary in it. Like the whole idea of like Weyland-Yutani just basically forcing these people to work and terraform, and the whole impetus of them wanting to get away is that she can't get out of her contract because they keep moving the goalpost and everything. Just like that kind of corporate jackassery and stuff that harkens back to the whole discussion of bonuses and bonus shares and stuff in the first movie. And I don't know, I just really appreciated that there was some kind of subtext there. And I think maybe you said in our group chat, or someone said somewhere that, Weyland-Yutani, not a good company.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, my original blurb for Romulus actually was bootlickers are scarier than xenomorphs. And I didn't do it because I figured like that's already subtext within Aliens. Like Burke is Paul Reiser's character like is meant to be for a lot of that movie like the primary antagonist, because he is just this diehard corporatist and is bloodthirsty in doing so. There is definitely, I agree. I like that part of this movie.
Yeah.
The Covenant and Prometheus don't really have, I guess, Charlize Theron's character in Prometheus would maybe be the closest thing. But I agree. Like, that's why I kind of wanted that. Like when she's at the Office of Colony Affairs, like early on, I'm game for that stuff.
Oh,
like,
totally.
I think James Cameron especially was able to pull that kind of messaging out of Alien and really expand it in Alien. So I'm cool with them like putting that in here because it is, again, chronologically it makes sense too. Yeah. Where Weyland-Yutani would be kind of in their corporate overlorddom. So I glommed onto any of that I could in Romulus because there are definitely moments there when you look for them. So that was it again. Especially in what's now a Disney movie, like any, it's always great anytime it's
absolutely.
Anytime it's a Disney product that's about, how evil companies are, corporations are.
It's amazing.
Sometimes they sneak them past them.
Yeah. And like just the fact that like a big dramatic pivot is Andy getting reprogrammed to not serve what is in Rain's best interest, but what is in the company's best interest. And it's just like, I don't know. I like, this is a non sequitur, but like, I would like to see what some LinkedIn posts from Weyland-Yutani employees are like. But anyway,
and David, he would have a real 180 switch on his posts.
Oh yes,
he would start from dad jokes, and then he would go into thousand word blurbs about how
absolutely
the grind set. I
love it.
So no, I mean, again, I keep saying David because David Johnson is Andy is the name of the character because David is the one in Prometheus.
Yep.
Mike Fassbender's character. Anyway, wonderful performance, and again, really shows a different side of an android character that's different than Ash or Rook or David or Walter. Definitely his own thing. David Johnson was great in a rom-com called Rye Lane that came out last year.
Oh, I never saw that, but was
really,
on my radar.
really solid. Yeah,
Nice.
really solid. Kind of like slice of life, sort of, around London. So yeah, it's really good. And yeah, I think if you like him here, that's another place to. He hasn't been in very many movies, but
awesome.
It'll be really cool to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I will have to keep my eye out for that. So one of the big things in this movie was something I wasn't expecting. The whole pregnancy thing, we can talk briefly about it, but I wasn't sure if Bjorn was the one who got Kay pregnant, because that moment before he dies seems very intimate, but I couldn't tell if that's what the movie was communicating, and it ultimately doesn't matter because he dies and then she gives birth. How'd you feel about that new alien, that new monster, which again is also in keeping with the franchise, different variations of the aliens? This is definitely new and unique. How'd you feel about it?
I like the creature itself. I don't think this is the movie's fault, but between Immaculate and The First Omen, we've had creepy births and babies and things like that of otherworldly supernatural variation, especially the one in First Omen, which I was pretty surprised they were able to get away with on an R rating.
Same.
The actual birth scene actually didn't repulse me as much as I wanted it to.
Same here. It had nothing on the abortion scene from Prometheus for sure.
Well, and that too, right? From the same franchise, which I agree that's an incredible sequence.
Or the chest
when you
burster,
realize what they're doing, in Prometheus, it's it's so killer. Anyway, so the creature though, definitely a horror, kind of a zombie sort of creation. Just very, very tall. Definitely elements of the engineers from Prometheus, but it's kind of its own different thing. And that's fun. That's where to me, it's just I'm cool with just a horror movie. It's just two of them going after it. And very much that jump scare.
Oh my God.
Reeling back. I mean,
it was so good.
It's just that's classic.
Boogum
boogum stuff. And
I loved that. Yeah.
So I dug the creature work. I thought that was all cool. But it's not the movie's fault that there have been some gnarly birth related scenes this movie in horror. So
I agree.
If you're pregnant, maybe don't watch horror movies.
I know it's it's funny, and this is, I don't know, and we're not the people to dissect this at all, but
no, let's talk about women's bodies.
Yes, exactly. So
I mean, in the pregnancy, let's talk about their uterus.
Right. Yes. All right. So Uterus 101 with Matt and Brent. I do wonder, and I know, granted, I know that Don't Breathe has some things like that too, which is, whatever, but it's interesting that like you pointed out, this year alone, there has been The First Omen, Immaculate, now this. There's been a lot of grotesque and body horror stuff involving women giving birth. And it's interesting. I don't know if this is a direct reflection of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, and maybe this is a reaction to it in terms of, the culture and this is the art that's been kind of created in the wake of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So I don't know. Just a thought that I had.
Yeah, I mean, it could be in there. I mean, with these movies, with all three movies, the common theme is, this idea that it's you don't know what's you don't know what's going to be at the other end.
Yes.
In one of them, in the first Omen, I think it's actually a like a hallucination or whatever, but the other two basically are essentially not. And I think it's a neat way to mirror what probably is a paranoia that people have about, okay, well, like what's next, and it is scary. It's not, and I think it's also, if I had to guess, these are all horror movies that we're talking about and horror elements, but there are a lot of scenes in movies where like childbirth is very like, oh, like there's no umbilical cord,
right?
It's like it's all it is very sterile and everything, and so it's, I think, maybe sort of flying in the face of that. Like, no, it's a messy business, and again, I understand we're talking about this in the context within horror films, but I do think it's sort of a pushback on the maybe idyllic visualization that is often kind of done in movies that are where it's just it's meant to be very glossed over.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So it was scary. The monster was scary. Trying to get us out of this cancelable conversation, but
let's just storm Planned Parenthood right now. Let's do it.
No. By the way, where were you on January 6th?
It's a great question. One that I will not answer.
It's a great question. I was in numerous places. I
actually do remember where I was. I was in Traverse City, Michigan, I think.
Oh, okay.
We were on a friend trip, and
nice.
we were like, what just happened? You're certifying the votes, and what happened?
I was taking a shit in Nancy Pelosi's office. Just kidding. No.
Did they ever give you the headgear back?
No, they didn't.
The shaman.
Just it was a waste. It was a waste. But
it's a solid Alien movie, and I think, in kind of going back to what I was saying about the pairings, like it'll be kind of interesting to see how soon they follow this up with. Like, I don't know exactly like how well they need this to do or want this to do to kind of keep this going and get another one out there. Like you said, this was kind of already borderline Hulu, so like they did a Predator prequel straight to Hulu, so I don't know.
And they're working
regardless,
on a new one for that too.
The series and Alien.
Oh yeah, that too.
Earth, that as well. So now that Disney kind of has both of the reins on the Predator, and who God knows, there'll probably be a third Alien v Predator.
Yeah, Jesus.
But regardless, I think what I'm getting at is I'll be interested to see how they follow this up, and then kind of how time, if they do Alien Remus or whatever, how these two will kind of look in retrospect, because again, that's how I think about AVP, even though I haven't seen them, but even Prometheus and Covenant didn't come out that long ago. But I think of those two as companion films, because they, and Aliens and all that stuff. So we'll see. But I think for now it's has some good, has some bad, but I'm well glad. Shot too. We'll say.
Yes, absolutely. One minor quibble with the franchise as a whole, and this is just more my anal retentiveness, but Alien Romulus, Alien Covenant. I can't remember if Alien Resurrection, I don't remember if Resurrection was the name of the ship or anything, but I want to kind of go back in time and make these titles fit the scheme. Like, I would want Prometheus to be Alien Prometheus, Alien Nostromo, Aliens, Hadley's Hope. I don't know. That's just a minor, just like thing that keeps me up at night. But the other thing I want to say, just really quick, something I wanted to bring up. I don't know. I assume that this was a direct, intentional Easter egg thing, but something that I really liked is like one of the first shots of it's even in the trailer, was on the planet, in the background of the out the window, there's that giant building, the Weyland-Yutani building, and it looks just like the architecture of Blade Runner. It just evokes that, and I know that there's there's a lot of like, not even speculation, just conversation about how, you know, the synthetics in Alien franchise are maybe the precursor or postcursor maybe to the replicants in the Blade Runner movies. So I don't know. I just liked that kind of visual, that visual reference of being like, yeah, they fit together. So I like just seeing that one.
And Blade
shot
Runner very much being that thesis for Ridley Scott of like, I met my God and he hates me.
Oh, exactly.
Very much. That's a theme he's been, you know, playing with in several, you know, films and franchises. So,
absolutely.
So yeah. So we'll see where they take it, but yeah, they'll probably make a 10th one.
They probably will, and I will be there with bells on. It's something that I think among our circle and people online as well, I've seen like it has xenomorphs. It's good. Like that's the barrier for entry with it. The xenomorph is an amazing monster.
Perfect organism.
Exactly. So that is our review of Alien Romulus. Once again, Brent, you rated it 3 stars and I rated it 3.5 stars. Any closing thoughts on Alien Romulus before we go on to probably a brief secondary review this episode?
No, I don't think so.
Nice. All right. Well, once again, check out awakeinthedark.com for more of Brent's musings on movies and some weird tangents about, you know, this Project 2025 thing.
My blog. Yeah. Oh boy.
So, okay. We're going to go ahead and go into a secondary review, but first I'm going to give a little scripted thing that I fumble all the time. So here's a little interlude, and then I'll bring us into the secondary review.
They tell me I view obsessively.
And before we get to our secondary review, I want to take a quick moment to remind you that if you like the show, please take a moment to follow us on social media and subscribe to and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or whatever your preferred podcast app is. Apparently, you can now access Apple Podcasts via your web browser. I don't understand the ins and outs of that, but that's another way that you can get the show. Check it out. And don't forget to subscribe to the Obsessive Viewer Podcast YouTube channel as well, where I have some video content up there. And also, if you're interested in starting a podcast of your own, you can go to Libsyn and use the promo code OBSESS when you sign up for a new account. You'll get up to 2 months free, depending on when you sign up during the month, and we'll get a commission on it as well. I've been using Libsyn for now almost 12 years or 11 and a half years. Never had a hiccup with it. I have 3 shows through them. So check that out, Libsyn.com. Use promo code OBSESS. More details on that in the show notes. And now back to the show. I'm going to play that interlude again.
They tell me I view obsessively.
And for our secondary review, we're going to be talking about Didi, which is currently in, I think, limited release in theaters. It was came out July 26th, but also August 16th. The premise, according to IMDb, is in 2008, during the last month of summer before high school begins, an impressionable 13-year-old Taiwanese-American boy learns what his family can't teach him: how to skate, how to flirt, and how to love your mom. Writer and director was Sean Wang, and the cast includes Isaac Wang, Joan Chen, Shirley Chen, Zhang Li Hua, Mahala Park, Raoul Dial, and Aaron Chang. And Brent, we're going to go into a probably non-spoiler review for Didi, and I will actually play a quick clip from the trailer to get us into that. So hold for just a moment, and I am sorry.
What was your name again?
Chris. All my friends just call me Wang Wang.
What should I call you? You're never gonna survive high school.
You're like a lizard with your scaly ass eczema skin.
It's a face!
Alright, lizard bitch.
You just called me a bitch!
Bitch.
什么叫 bitch? 说脏话. Nobody likes you!
All right, so Brent, Didi. Also worth noting, it includes 2 songs from my favorite band, Motion City Soundtrack, including their new track, Stop Talking, which plays over the credits. Yeah, I love them dearly. I'm so excited that they're working on a new album. Brent, what did you think of Stop Talking by Motion City Soundtrack? And also Didi.
Yeah, I think I texted you the credits for this because I knew that they had a new song out, and yeah, it turns out that's the one with the credits. I don't know how exactly they timed it up, if this will be on the soundtrack or whatever. But anyway, When You're Around also plays in a really, really fun scene, in a car scene. Yeah, so this is one that I was kind of aware of from Sundance. Focus Features picked it up. And yeah, it's coming out now. It was a really smart get for them. I think this is very much something like an A24's wheelhouse. I mean,
yes,
God, there are just so many. It sounds bad to say like other movies like in the wheelhouse, but like mid 90s, Lady Bird, Minari, like parts of The Farewell. Like there's so many other like A24 movies that I feel like this, quite frankly, could fit alongside. But regardless, like Focus picked this up. I think it's, again, a really smart get, because I think it is not always it's not always the kind of movie that they're going for.
Right.
And I don't know awards wise, like end of the year, if this will really factor in. Having said all that, I thought it was really outstanding. I think it's definitely one of the best movies I've seen this year. And it's another one that it's like someone kind of just coming out of the gate, in Sean Wang, the writer director, who had, I think, one short documentary for, which isn't the basis for this movie, but it's kind of part of it. Like there's that Nine-Eye character like in that short, I believe. So like there's like kind of some similar DNA. But this is presumably him writing about his time growing up, which, again, I mean, Lady Bird, it's Sacramento, I believe, is somewhere in that area. In 2008, we're both kind of an age where we're really starting to see mid-aughts stuff. That 20-year cycle of nostalgia is really starting to hit a lot, I think, because just of the way millennials are starting to progress through their 30s. So I might look back on this movie and say, wow, this is really pandering. I don't know, because I can't know that. All I know is it worked for me really well.
Same.
And I think a lot of it just has to do with the specificity of the era, but also it is so heartfelt. It doesn't just feel like someone who was around during that time. You really get the sense that it's someone who really grew up a lot during this very short this summer break, essentially, this a few month period in 2008. So I just, not only I like coming of age movies in general, but I like when they can kind of sort of look at a pocket of time in retrospect and be like, okay, wow, that really changed things for me.
Yes.
So yeah, in short, I really had a wonderful time with it.
Yeah, same here. And that is, it's so interesting to me that I love coming of age movies. I gravitate toward these types of movies so often. Like, this is 100% my bag. And that is due mostly because, as someone who grew up as a teenager, I experienced the teenage years and my adolescence as someone who was undiagnosed, depressed, anxious, all of these things. And I navigated that. And I was also very introspective. I thought a lot about like who I was, what my identity was, what my personality is, like how I, like most teenagers did, like worry about what people perceive me as, how I'm perceived in the incredibly just scary world of my peer group and changing schools and like going to high school, like all of these different things. Like, it is 100% one of the most formative times of anyone's life. And so I gravitate toward movies that depict that. And like Bo Burnham's 8th Grade, I thought was one of my favorite movies, like just all told. And something you said that this one hits so interestingly close to home because it's of that era. It's of 2008. Granted, I graduated high school in 2005, so like it's not, I wasn't preparing to go into high school when I was, I wasn't on Facebook in high school, basically. But the way that this movie utilizes the technology of the time, like AOL Instant Messenger, MySpace, Top 8s, Facebook in its like rudimentary ways, and uses that as the backdrop to which this character goes on this journey of not necessarily, well, I guess self-discovery, but like self-sampling, like trying to fit in and not being able to fit in because he's just almost confident enough. He's almost there. He's almost aware of who he is, how he, can be comfortable in his own skin, but he hasn't grown to that yet. And so this is that growing pain thing where he doesn't know how to talk to girls. Even when they initiate a first move, he doesn't know how to, film skateboard tricks like all that well. Like he's dabbling in these things, and it's such a nice, like, subtle examination of what it's like to not know yourself yet, but being kind of like on the cusp of finding out like what interests you, what kind of person you like are and will be and could become. And I just think that is amazing. And to speak of my love for Motion City Soundtrack again, like I was so tickled that they had a song in this movie and that they had that they had two songs in this movie and everything, because their music, like the reason they're my favorite band is because their music speaks to me on that emotional level, and it deals with a lot of these same topics: anxiety, self-discovery, self-realization, and depression and procrastination and all of these things. And I think that their music is a great fit for this movie. And also it's a good movie.
Yeah. And I think, comparing this, like the 8th grade to like that's very much, a movie set in the, that's, I think came out in 2018, but it's very much very much like smartphone era, like everything, like pretty much where we are now, where everything's like just technology is just a runaway train. Moving back, 10 years to 2008, you're kind of seeing how like technology is starting to like form people. But I mean, in retrospect, I mean, it just seems quaint.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's not, it just felt like wasn't everywhere, and it was a little bit more novel. So I think there's something about the way that technology was in this time where it's like you can put it down.
Yeah.
Or you just can't now.
Oh yeah. You can put it, you can block, so you can get to a point where you're about to be vulnerable with someone over the internet and then block them and prevent yourself from sending a message that shows your vulnerability. Whereas now, like, it's all over TikTok. Like, people, right. It's the vulnerability is depicted really well in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that thing of like, he's definitely the main character, but you're definitely getting a lot of commentary on like, like his dad is working in Taiwan and he is not seen in the film, so that he can have a good life and complain about his family and and be angsty and all this stuff. His sister's about to go off to college. He has a different relationship with her, tense relationship with his mom, all this stuff that gets a lot of the relationship stuff right, and not just with him, but like his grandma, but it's his dad's mom is living with them as well. And sort of getting back to the documentary that he won an Oscar for, like that's a tense thing.
Yes.
Living with your mother-in-law. I mean, let's face it. And so I think you definitely get some of that here too, that necessarily this movie he is the focal point of it, he is the center point of it. But even going back and retrospect and as an adult being able to say, yeah, I thought I had it hard, but like, man, like my mom like had to live with like, you know, her husband's mom, you know, like this whole, you know, all these years and stuff. And they were so, you know, that's a struggle. So anyway, just being able to grow up some, that reminded me of Past Lives a little bit too. And that's another film that does take place. I think parts of it are in like the mid 2000s, and there's that aspect of like when video chatting was like very nascent. So I think we're getting to that part where we're really almost fetishizing. Maybe fetishizing is too strong a word, but just when you have some technology, but it just moves so fast.
Yes.
And where we're just everywhere now, where it's just like right on that cusp, where I feel like people are really craving that.
Yeah. And I think that's where this movie, I think, will kind of stand the test of time a little bit in terms of being a kind of unique kind of timestamp of that era that it's depicting. In it being this kind of window into what it was like before the world went to hell and every emotion and everything that we feel as people is just broadcast on the internet. Like having this privacy, this vulnerability, this quiet, introspective vulnerability is something that is kind of this era, I think. So,
yeah, any good coming of age movie has universal themes and ones that are, you know, specific to it. And I think that's the litmus test for me with these kind of movies is like, does it have both? And I think this definitely has the themes that will resonate outside of 2008, 2024 that will kind of live on. But it gets the specificity of the period really right too. I mean, it Smarter Child, like it. Oh my God! Not even talking with, like AI, like that's a thing now, you know. And it's like Smarter Child was the first iteration of that.
And it was nice
AOL
seeing
Messenger.
It was nice seeing my former best friend on the screen.
There you go.
Smarter Child,
always there for you. Yeah, forever.
But yeah, no, that was great. And also, I think that there's a level of interesting. I don't know if I would say cheekiness. I don't know. Maybe this is me just kind of projecting something onto the movie, but like it uses a clip from Superbad, which is a coming of age teen comedy that was in 2007, 2008. And like, what I find so interesting is that this is very much of the era of 2008, very much authentic to that experience. And something that I love about Superbad, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, is the way that it's set in 2007, but it shows like almost a triptych of different parts of your life in terms of, you know, raging, partying, stuff like that. So you've got like high school party, bar people. What's the word? Bar snails? I can't remember. Barflies. There you go. And then you got like a college house party, and it's just like different eras of like growing up and everything, which I love Superbad, but it kind of feels like Didi has that clip in this saying like, yes, this is perhaps one of the best coming of age comedies of the era that we are depicting, that we are showing in this movie, but we're also showing what it was really like. Like this is a more definitive like 2008 coming of age story. So I don't know. Yeah, but that's just my my thoughts on it, I guess. I don't know. Which is the whole point of this podcast.
It just sort of hit for me. It's short and sweet. It's like a little over an hour and a half. Like, just is one of those movies that's like doesn't feel like it has wasted scenes or lines or anything. You know, it's just like it's just kind of its own. Yeah, it's one that I really already kind of treasure a whole lot. So I I'm definitely looking forward to revisiting it. I mean, it's again classic kind of. We talk about Superbad and these other movies, and it's one of those ones. Like, I think it'll be a lot of fun to rewatch. It's a neat era to regale ourselves with, and it's one of those movies that, like, I hope people discover it when it's on Peacock later this year, because God knows no one's going to see this in a theater.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
How many times did you see Superbad in theaters?
Oh my God. I think I maybe twice or three times, honestly.
But you know why I'm asking that? Because it's just that no one's going to see Didi in the theater.
Oh yeah.
You know, even though like this should be catnip to people, millennials in their 30s.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just, there's not that sense of urgency that it's just a different time. But that's what we're talking about.
It is.
And you know.
Yeah. So. Bonus. There's a pretty killer 3-minute and 21-second closing credits sequence scored to a great song by a great band.
And you can only hear it in the movie. Yeah,
only hear
it's just, I don't know. I just get very curmudgeonly about, like, I just have to accept, like, these kind of movies just aren't going to make money in theaters. And I don't know.
And it's a shame too. It really is. Like, I mean, that's... Obviously, this is a more limited release and everything. There's business side of it and everything. But, like, this is an intensely relatable story. And, like, not to get on, like, my liberal soapbox or anything, but any super relatable stories that are told from the perspective of, like, minority filmmakers or otherwise marginalized people, like... Yeah, this is that empathy machine that Ebert was talking about with movies. Like, this is the type of movie that can have a mass appeal for people who want to reflect on what it was like to be this age and not be racist about it. And, like,
right.
I don't know, but there was something else I was going to say along those lines, but I can't remember. But yeah, it's a really good movie. I rated it 4.5 stars out of 5, and
me as well.
Nice. Yeah, and I can't remember what I knew I was going to say something, but I can't remember, and it's going to bug me because as soon as I finish recording, it's going to be there. But anyway, Didi is in limited release in theaters. When it comes onto Peacock or wherever, definitely watch it. It's a great one. I really enjoyed it. So, and we're gonna forego potpourri because we're running out of time, and we've been going a while. So, Brent, I want to say once again, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Obsessive Viewer. If you wouldn't mind regaling the audience with the places on the internets that they can find you and your work.
Yeah, I'm on wakeinthedark.com. It's on Facebook and Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram and Letterboxd, all of them.
Nice. All right. Well, links to all of Brent's work will be in the show notes of this episode, of course. And yeah, you can find me at Obsessive Viewer all over the place. So that's it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. As always, thank you so much for listening, and make sure to follow the show on social media and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast app. Also check out Obsessive Viewer Podcast's other shows, including Tower Junkies, a Stephen King podcast hosted by Tiny and myself, and Anthology, the Twilight Zone and Classic Sci-Fi podcast hosted by me. Next week on the show, I think it'll be either Blink Twice or Sing Sing, depending on where I can see it, or maybe The Crow. I don't know. But anyway, that and Strange Darling. So that'll be next week on the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. And now, enjoy this short clip from a recent Patreon exclusive episode. For the full episode and more Patreon exclusive content, sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And because of that, King doesn't seem very interested in, like, building out that character or building out the arc. Like, he has some characterization there, but it just feels like the whole psychic ability thing is completely like an afterthought. Like, honestly, well, I don't know if I'd go this far, but I was about to say that it kind of feels like maybe this story, and one version of this story was just the police procedural, and then King was like, well, maybe I'll throw in like this psychic ability. Maybe he had a dream and that's how he found it, and then revised it to include that. Thank you for listening to the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This episode was produced and edited by me, Matt Hurt. If you have feedback, thoughts on our episodes, or just want to connect, you can email me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. For more information on this show, including a full archive of our episodes and show notes, visit obsessiveviewer.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. Also, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible to help increase our visibility and grow our community. If you want to support the show and get early access to new episodes, as well as a steady stream of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. For information on more podcasts presented by obsessiveviewer.com, visit obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. Our theme song is A Little Mad Sometimes by As Good As It Gets. For more of their music, check them out on Spotify and at asgoodasitgetsmusic.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify, get helpful stats and all the support you need to sound your very best.